Well, hello, and welcome back to the Open Debate. My name's Elder. How is everybody doing today? Welcome back to another live stream. Glad to see you all out there today. Hello, Brett. Hello, Barry. Thanks for joining us here today. So, we have a lot to talk about. Since the last time I updated this story, a lot has happened. Not too sure how familiar everybody is out there, but judging by how saturated my timeline on Facebook, on YouTube, Twitter has been with this story, I can only assume that most people are up to date. Good morning there, Lee. So, pretty much where are we at right now? Well, JUSSIE Smollett has been requested to speak to the police. He doesn't want to, and has requested his lawyer speak with him. But where's the public at? What is everybody thinking? What is the motive behind the public at this point? Instantly, everybody has changed their tune and is accusing this of being a hoax. Everything is lining up to that being the case. This story is actually baffling me. The question that I have and that I am really looking forward to trying to discover and deeply looking into is why. Why would this happen? And what I've seen from a lot of people, how's it going there, Panzer dude? What I've seen from a lot of people is that they believe this is a symptom of today's society, where people want to be a victim, and that victim mentality has become such a propped up thing in society that it's now looked upon almost in a favorable manner. But I think that this should be a good outlining case. I think that this should be a good outlining case to show people that if you are to falsify an account like this, you should be held accountable. As of right now, we're hearing reports that the FBI is getting involved in this case due to the fact that the Nigerian brothers, I've heard reports that they were born in Chicago, yet the media is framing them as Nigerian brothers. This is another thing to keep in mind. Why? Why are they? Yes, they're African American, but they were born in America. They're American citizens. Why would you be framing them as Nigerian brothers? Perhaps because the perception of American seems to be overwhelmingly Caucasian or white. But that's another story all on its own. So yeah, the FBI seems to be getting involved because the brothers in the interrogation or interview, or however you'd like to call it, apparently they had stated that JUSSIE also sent himself the threatening letter that he had claimed to receive weeks prior to the attack. So, if you hadn't seen it, there's a picture of the letter right here, clearly on the screen. It had some racial slurs on it. It's all written in, it's not written, it's in like, you can see it right there, out of magazines. It's like, it's almost like a caricature of what you would expect a threatening letter or a scary letter to be. As soon as I saw that, I was kind of skeptical, but you gotta wait for the facts to come out. You never know, maybe somebody actually out there is stupid enough to be sending out letters like that with unknown white substances attached. Okay, so when you make a report like that, the FBI is gonna get involved. Let's read an article here from National Review that's talking about this. FBI probing whether Smollett sent threatening letter to himself. Interesting situation. The FBI is working with U.S. Postal Service to determine whether Empire actor JUSSIE Smollett sent himself a threatening letter in the days before the hate crime he is now under investigation for allegedly staging. Two federal officials told ABC News Tuesday. The two Nigerian brothers who had told Chicago police last week that Smollett paid them to stage a racially motivated attack on him have also told the authorities that Smollett sent himself the threatening letter that arrived on the Empire set on January 22nd, just 7 days before they claim they conducted the hoax attack. The brothers, one of whom worked as an extra on Empire, reportedly claimed that Smollett was motivated to stage the attack after his co-worker's reaction to the letter did not live up to his expectations. The letter, which was accompanied by crushed-up aspirin, is now being analyzed at an FBI crime lab. So it puts into perspective, like, there are real-world implications for making claims like this. And this is another thing that I've heard other people saying, that when he got that initial letter, people didn't take his claims serious enough, and they didn't treat him as someone who was a big enough victim or someone who had been attacked in any way, and therefore he staged this attack to gain more attention on himself. But that is the same motivation as what I was speaking of before. What is that mentality that being a victim is a good thing? That's never a good thing. Excuse me. So the investigation just gets a little deeper and deeper as we continue to go on. We have another article here saying that Jussie Smollett faces prison, career ruin if he lied about attack, which is 100% true. Like, there are so many things to question as to why you would fake this type of situation when the implications of you lying are so serious. Not only does it impact his own career and his own life, but it impacts everybody who actually has a serious problem that they want the media and the attention of the public to take seriously. And I feel as though these people know that. It really doesn't add up. The attack wasn't well planned out. I'm still a little baffled. Let's read some more articles here. We got some things. This case is really getting under my skin a little bit because I don't understand the mindset that would drive somebody to falsify an attack on themselves or play themselves out to be the victim in a situation that was so flawed or that was just simply not true. You're gaining nothing from it. The only possible outcome that I can see is that he wanted to be the face of a movement or a face for oppressed people or someone for them to look up to. But with this coming out, he literally turned himself into the exact opposite of that. Anyways, Jussie Smollett is facing prison time and the implosion of his career if it turns out he lied about being the target of a hate crime, legal and public relations experts say. The thing is that everybody still does need to frame it as if he lied, but it's pretty well come out that he has no evidence to back up any, like, all the evidence points to the situation being that he did this. Oh, tune in, drop out. Thanks for the old donation there. Tune in, drop out said, perception is now reality by proxy. If your perception cannot be sustained in reality, create the reality to match your perception. Trump derangement syndrome is real. And I do agree with that. Trump derangement syndrome is definitely real. It's something that a lot of people face, and it's not necessarily Trump derangement syndrome could be summed up as a term, but I think that it really has to do with the effects of the media's narrative being driven into certain individuals, where if you only get your information from a certain source and all of that information seems to be biased or coming from a certain angle, then when you enter reality and reality doesn't match up to what you believe it to be, that would be very mentally strenuous and leave you feeling so disconnected from what you believe the world to be. And I feel like that's what happened to a lot of people during the election, when all they were being fed was that Hillary Clinton was going to win, and then when Trump won, that literally was not there reality at all. They could not fathom that that would ever happen, because that they never were shown any sort of information that would indicate that that was the case, or that that was even a possibility. And so when it happened, they didn't even know where they were or what reality they were in. That's the way that I saw it from an outside perspective. And I see the same sort of thing happening with stories about Trump and Trump supporters within the media, where a lot of people have this boogeyman idea that everyone is just racist and out to get them, and that if they don't completely agree with, like, if somebody doesn't completely agree with your ideology or the progressive mainstream ideology, then they must be harmful, or they must want to harm you as a person. I see that Barry there said, I plan to withhold my judgment until he speaks to the cops. And I understand that completely. I withhold any sort of legal repercussions or anything, but I'm going to personally judge him on his actions based on what they appear to be so far and the way that he's handled the situation. I'm not going to put any harsh absolutes, and I'm willing to, my mind's willing to be changed. But as the information is leading up to as we speak, and how it seems to be appearing, all signs point to this man faking this attack, and therefore I would love to it have just never happened. Just none of this ever happened. It's the best case scenario is really what's going on, is that he falsified the attack and that there was no racially motivated hate crime in the middle of the streets in Chicago at 2 a.m. On that evening. At least this was not a particular case that happened, and that's actually the best outcome. I would much rather this be a hoax than it actually be a hate crime and a modern day lynching, right? That's not what we want to see. And I feel like a lot of people have such a, like we were just speaking about, have such a bias because the media has been telling them that Trump supporters are these racist, evil, bigoted people, that they 100% believe, of course, this is going on. But we don't want this to be happening, and it wouldn't be a good thing if it was. So, no, it's not good for him, but I think other people should rejoice in the fact that this seems to be a false case. Keep in mind, when victims speak, you need to listen. You need to weigh in all of the evidence that's brought forth. And that's why this case ended up being solved, because it was taken seriously, because he wasn't brushed off, because nobody sat there and said, oh, well, nah, this probably didn't happen. You know, you're just some black guy in Chicago. This probably never happened to you. We're not even going to look into it. No, the police really went hard and looked into the situation. And what happened? They figured it out. Or they're trying to figure it out. They're still in the process, but they're putting their resources into the situation to figure it out. They're trying. They're getting there. So, let's just, I'm going to pull this up because I find this interesting. I have a couple timestamps from the original, that interview that Jussie put out. I think it was ABC. Bring it up here. And, yeah, so we're just going to listen to the way he was speaking during this interview and just what he has to say. What he has to say for himself and what he has to say about the situation, and just let me know like how you guys feel about what's being said and how he's saying it. Remember, he's an actor, and I've never seen Empire, but I've heard that he's pretty good.
I'm pissed off.
What is it that has you so angry? Is it the attackers?
It's the attackers, but it's also the attacks. It's like, you know, at first it was a thing of like, listen, if I tell the truth, then that's it, because it's the truth. Mm-hmm. Then it became a thing of like, oh, how can you doubt that? Like, how do you not believe that? It's the truth. And then it became a thing of like, oh, it's not necessarily that you don't believe that this is the truth. You don't even want to see the truth.
What happened that night, Jussie?
When I landed in Chicago, and Frank Gatson, who's like,
So, like I just said, like he just said it there, but from the opposite side. Oh, you don't even want to see the truth. He's literally speaking as though this is 100% true, no matter what he says. And if you don't believe it, you just don't want to see the truth. That obviously the streets are riddled with racists, and the world is, or not the world, but America is coming to a boiling point where black people can't walk the streets, Muslim people can't walk the streets, you know, any minority group, they can't go out in public because they face fear of being beaten down. And this man rose up against it. And if you don't believe him, you're just not willing to see the truth. That's what I see from that little stint.
The vast majority of people have been supportive and loving and understanding. And then as time has gone on, and that there's no, you know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you're going to Subway, Sub-Zero.
Subway is open 24 hours. Like, people kill me when they say things like that, because it's like Subway is open 24 hours for a reason. So that when you're hungry at night and you ain't got no food, you go to Subway. The camera facing north. How is that my issue? It feels like if I had said it was a Muslim or a Mexican or someone black, I feel like the doubters would have supported me a lot more. And that says a lot about the place that we are in our country right now. The fact that we have these fear mongers, these people that are trying to separate us, and it's just not okay. Mm-hmm. It's just not okay. And for all of the people, the next time that you see someone report something, maybe well after the fact that it happened, and you say to them, well, why you wait until now? Just remember that mine was reported right away. And look what has happened.
The phone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? That's the kind of thing that baffles my mind. Why is he going on like that? And why is he bringing that sort of attention to himself when looking back on this interview, literally, let's go down, 15th, it's the 20th today, 5 days later, this did not age well at all. 5 days later, and looking back on that, you're like, what is he saying? This is the exact opposite of what he's talking about. He's saying that for every person that reports, and if you don't believe them because it took a long time, look at what's happening to me. He's the perfect case of a fake story. This is terrible. I find this to be absolutely terrible and detrimental to people that actually need help.
And I saw on my sweatshirt, it had marks on it, like spots on it, when you have a bad bleach job. So then I was like, there's bleach on me too. So when the police came, I kept the clothes on. I kept the rope.
So you had the rope on the entire time?
I mean, it wasn't like wrapped around, but yeah, it was around because I wanted them to see. I wanted them to see what this was. I told them what happened, everything. I also asked them to turn their body cams off because they were trying to stay in the hallway. And I was like, please just come in. Like, I don't want a big scene with my neighbors and with like the second round of police officers. I went down to where it happened and I walked them through exactly what happened. And I looked up and I saw that there was a camera directly on the light post that is in the intersection. So I'm like, there it is.
A potential break in the case that would eventually...
Says he doesn't want a big scene, yet the entire world, he clearly, he's an actor. He knew this was going to be a big scene. He doesn't want his neighbors to see, yet he reported it. He spoke with TMZ about this. You would not speak with any public figures or any media outlets if you did not want this to be getting out there or being a big media hype. I think that he's really just talking out his booty. So that wasn't even the timestamp. I'm trying to go to the end here, see what he says. What I wanted was 15:13, I believe.
If the attackers are never found,
Yeah.
how will you be able to heal?
I don't know. Let's just hope that they are. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's not go there yet. Let's, I was talking to a friend, and I said, I just want them to find them. And she said, sweetie, they're not gonna find them. And that just made me so angry, because, so I'm just gonna be left here with this? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just gonna be left here with like, so they get to go free and go about their life and possibly attack someone else, and I'm here to left with the aftermath of this bull? That's not cool to me. That's not okay. So I understand how difficult it will be to find them, but we gotta. I still want to believe, with everything that has happened, that there's something called justice. Because if I stop believing that, then what's it all for?
Well, I also hope that there's a thing called justice, and that the justice system does its job properly in this case. I think that it's I've heard other people saying this, and it's a pretty well-established thing. I don't think it's even just necessarily a black person, but anybody who got a rope wrapped around their neck, the first thing that you would do is take that thing off. That is not something that you would do. You would not leave the rope around your neck for 40 minutes and say, look, this is the state that I'm in. Like, take it off, put it on before they get back on to show them or something. You would not, I don't know anybody who would feel comfortable sitting around for 40 minutes eating a Subway sandwich with a rope around their neck after they just got attacked and it was put there. So many things don't add up with this story, but we're going to have to wait for everything to come out, I guess. I'm not going to sit here and just berate this guy, but honestly, it's moving more and more towards that. I mean, I'll pull up this other clip here. Got a couple timestamps. Don't want to get a copyright, but copyright strike. But yeah, when you got people like Trevor Noah making fun of the situation, you know things are bad. You know that things are not looking good for this guy.
The police now believe that Smollett staged his own attack, which would be insane. But you have to admit, there's a certain part of the story that was always a little weird. Like, who are the MAGA supporters who hate gay people, who hate black people, but also happen to watch Empire? Like, I've heard of hate watching, but that shit would be next level. It's like a member of the Klan buying tickets to Fiddler on the Roof, just like, look, I'm no fan of the Jews, but you gotta admit, they can play a mean fiddle. This story is so weird. I'm sorry, like, I don't care who you are. This is a weird story because now they're saying that JUSSIE rehearsed the attack a few days before it happened. And look, I'm not gonna lie. That's the one part of the story that actually makes sense to me. Because if I was paying these two to beat me up, I would want to practice too, okay? No, I'm sorry. Look at this photo. How many abs does the guy on the left have? It looks like he stole a couple of abs from the other guy. So in the public eye, this story has moved from a hate crime against a popular TV actor to a giant hoax by a popular TV actor. But Smollett still insists there was no collusion.
Who the would make something like this up or add something to it? You do such a disservice when you lie about things.
Yeah. He is digging himself a bigger hole day in, day out. I don't know what the outcome's going to be, but I do know that this is bringing to light for a lot of people, like I'd been talking about, the fact that the media is super biased and that the stories that you're getting are not always going to be honest or truthful, and that there's always going to be a narrative being driven. So most times I'd say someone writing an article or somebody creating a video has a narrative in their head that they feel as though is correct, and then they will look for information or facts to coincide with what they already believe in order to direct that information to you and show you that it's correct, instead of just giving you the information and letting you decide for yourself. Philip DeFranco did a pretty good job of outlining the situation and piecing together the timeline of what happened in this event here. But this is such a cut and dry case that even for the most unaware, or like somebody who just doesn't care about these types of stories or media, it's so cut and dry that it really outlines for anybody just how, like the chat said, fear-mongering the state of the media is. I have another article I'm going to read here to you, and then we'll see what happens after that, guys. So, I'll bring her on up. So, what the Jussie Smollett story reveals. What does it reveal? That's the question that we've been talking about. What does it reveal about ourselves, the state of America, the state of Western society, the state of liberalism, the state of progressivism, whatever you want to call life? What does it show us about the state? I was one of many people who found Jussie Smollett's story a little off from the beginning. Two white men in ski masks are out in 10-degree weather in the middle of the night, equipped with a bottle of bleach or something like it, and a rope that they fashioned into a mock noose. These thugs, who shouted Trump slogans, as well as racist and homophobic slurs, seemed to know who Smollett was on sight, meaning they were aficionados of the splashy black soap opera Empire, on which Smollett is a main character. Somehow they were aware that Smollett, prominent but hardly an A-list celebrity, was gay. Yes, my skepticism made me feel a little guilty. We are justly sensitized to violence against people for being black and for being gay in the wake of incidents I need not name. We are also just past watching legions of people who should have known better refuse to credit Christine Blasey Ford's accusation against Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Maybe fear and trauma distorted Smollett's memory somewhat. Maybe the media were getting some of the details wrong. Wait and see. I and others thought. So right away you know that this is coming from the mindset of somebody who, I don't even need to say it. You get it from that statement. And if you don't, then that's fine as well. According to CNN, which got the information from 2 law enforcement sources and other news organizations as well, Chicago police believe 2 Nigerians arrested for their role in the attack were paid by Smollett to stage it. Relevant equipment was allegedly found in their apartment, meaning reports of receipts for the clothesline being bought and cutouts from magazines to help show that Jussie staged the letter on himself, and therefore that's why the FBI is getting involved. So Smollett's lawyers have issued a statement insisting these reports are false. Nothing is further from the truth, and anyone claiming otherwise is lying. That's essentially still where we're at. That's what his lawyers have said. They've said that everybody accusing him of falsifying this accusation is a liar. But that's just not going to play out. Okay. So we're not going to keep going on with this, but just to put into a little bit of a perspective that even people that you wouldn't expect to be calling the situation out are having a problem with it. They see the signs that this is not necessarily a true story, and that it's doing a disservice to people who actually do have problems. So this story is not as new, but we'll just we'll finish things off with this because it's kind of interesting, and it makes sense because just, I'd say, a day before this, so this is just from yesterday, and I'd say the day before that, Empire had come out with a statement saying that they were in full support of Jussie and that his role on Empire was a strong and prominent one, and that he had no need to be worried of any sort of not backlash from this situation, but he had no need to think that his character would lose time or be cut before this happened. And so TMZ reporting, Jussie Smollett, Empire role slashed in wake of attack scandal. So a little bit of a misleading title, but Jussie Smollett's Empire screen time is getting slashed in wake of growing sentiment that he staged the so-called attack. Production sources tell TMZ Jussie was supposed to have 9 scenes and a big musical number in the second to last episode, which is being shot now, but 5 of his scenes have been cut, and his musical number has been 86th. As for the remaining 4 scenes, we're told he's no longer the focus. The scenes featured in an ensemble, meaning he's flanked by a number of cast members. With his duties pared down, Jussie will be spending way less time on set. Instead of working every day this week, we're told Jussie's working Friday and possibly Thursday and won't be rehearsing. Less work for Jussie means more work for writers who are there's more work for the writers, obviously. We broke the story. Yeah, okay. So it is showing you there he's getting his screen time cut down after this situation has come out, and that's, I think, one of the least of his worries at this point. This is going to be a very serious situation for this guy in the end, I believe. There are actual federal crimes, I believe, for falsifying a hate crime and falsifying a crime that involves putting this much effort from the police and creates an entire investigation and an entire media stir throughout the country. If there are no implications for this, that sets a terrible example. So, I'm not a lawyer, but I can guarantee there are repercussions that Jussie is now facing. And as we've read reports of the FBI being involved, I'm interested in seeing where this story goes and what all happens. It's pretty much what everybody's talking about at the time. It's on the tip of everybody's tongue because it's such a confusing and interesting situation. It outlines the imaginary boogeyman that the media has been trying to portray and that people have been believing in for the past 2 years, and it's like somebody coming up and opening up that closet door that you heard something in the closet, you thought there was something scary in there, someone comes up and opens it up and you realize that there was nothing in there. People are having a hard time. You're still a little afraid. You don't really want to go up to the closet. You feel like something might be in there, but you can clearly see that it's empty. It's fine. Everything's okay for the most part. And I think this is kind of the same sort of situation, that people are having a hard time admitting to themselves that they believed things were so bad, that they were so quick and believed the story so easily. They just jumped on it, and it's putting things into perspective for people. And that's what I want to see. That's what my goal is with the videos that I put out and what I do with things. Hey, Big Water 59, what's going on? Thanks for the $5 there. Said you called it when the first came out. Yeah, all black men walk around Chicago with noose and bleach. Have to be a little stupid to believe in the first place. And it's one of those things. The story never added up from the beginning, and it's strange that that's the way he would go. Tim Pool actually said something that really put it into perspective. This entire thing could have worked out in his favor if he had have just not spoken up, waited a week, let his manager or let people around him come out, make a report, and say something for him. if he had have refused to speak to the police and said, I refuse to be a victim, I'm not going to make a report, they wouldn't have went and they wouldn't have investigated this hard. There would have just been people talking in the media and spreading this fake news, spreading the fake narrative, and he would have gotten away with it. But because he played the victim so hard and wanted to put forth all this effort, and what I've heard people say is that there are certain people that have biases against the police, feeling as though because he was a minority that they would not look into the case as hard as they would have for somebody who was not a minority. But that's just not the case, and clearly, especially with him being a prominent social figure in the spotlight, in the public spotlight, that the police put all their effort into finding out what happened and getting to the bottom of this case. Like I've talked about this, we've said it, it's absolutely crazy. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're at so far with this story. Just to put things into perspective of how far and how drastically things can change, I'll end it off with this story from Vice, just from the 14th, right? When this story first came out. So we started seeing this. This is the narrative that was being driven. JUSSIE SMOLLETT reminds us that fame doesn't protect queer and trans POC. The Empire actor appeared on Good Morning America to speak of his attack and defend himself against those calling him a liar. Right? Like, on January 28th, JUSSIE SMOLLETT was attacked in what has been labeled a hate crime. Police reported that the Empire star was called racial and homophobic slurs before being beaten by the assailants. An unknown substance was poured on SMOLLETT and a noose tied around his neck before the attackers made their escape. The report suggests that SMOLLETT's celebrity status partially motivated the attack because the assailants recognized SMOLLETT from his role on Empire. Yada yada yada. The police said they recovered video footage and released photos of possible persons of interest in the attack. Well, okay. Doubting that a hate crime could happen reflects the general ignorance of the daily violence of queer and trans people of color. Doubting that a hate crime could happen reflects the general ignorance of the daily violence queer and trans people of color face and endure every day, nuanced and existing at a myriad of different intersections. The attack on SMOLLETT represents a unique form of racialized queer phobia that impacts QTPOC. Seeing a black body terrorized because of race and sexual orientation is an all too familiar scene to the QTPOC community, which is why accepting it as a reality wasn't a problem for us when it seemed difficult for those doubters to believe. Okay. While SMOLLETT's celebrity status was more than likely a factor in his assailants targeting him, his cultural capital and his access to power and money make him one of the rare QTPOC whose attacks are reported and investigated. I do not believe that. If you were attacked, you reported it, and it was not investigated, I just don't believe that. Violence against queer and trans people of color occur at alarming rates, yet numbers suggest that because of a lack of trust in law enforcement, many LGBTQ people don't report crimes to the police. Well, that's your own fault. Studies also show that LGBTQ people experience a high level of harassment and discrimination from police officers and law enforcement. When taking into account race, those numbers are compounded. This may be why SMOLLETT was reluctant to report his attack in the first place. Furthermore, there is a lack of numerical and statistical research specifically addressing the unique violence and racism that QTPOC face, even within the larger queer and trans community. So they just made they made all those claims and then said, there is a lack of numerical and statistical research specifically addressing the unique violence and racism that QTPOC face. So you're claiming this with zero statistical evidence, zero evidence to back up your claims. These are all just, these are the stories I've heard, and this is the way I feel. Okay, I understand. Yes, I do understand. Sorry, that just made me a little upset. I understand that people do face discrimination and that that's not a good thing and that we need to end hate towards other people. But to make all these exaggerated claims and then at the end of your statement say, by the way, we actually have no information to back up our claims, I find that absolutely just disgusting. But the fact that this is the way that the story was being outlined, this is the way that things were being framed, and this is how they wanted people to see this story, and they wanted people to react with anger and with disgust towards these individuals that had attacked him. I didn't get into the attack as much because we know that it's a lie. Yeah, it's an interesting... We don't know that it's a lie. We have strong suspicion that it's a lie. Yeah, it's a very interesting situation, guys, and I'm sure that the story is going to continue to develop, but as for right now, I'd say that's pretty much where I'm at, just what I'm thinking, and everything that has come to my mind the past few days about this story. If anything else pops up, or as the story develops, I'm sure that I will be back on to discuss it with you all and research and just have a good old discussion. And I'm hoping that the media doesn't necessarily forget about this story, but I hope that they can put into perspective how important this story is compared to other things that are happening at the same time, because all I am seeing at this moment is this story being shoved down my throat, and I'm perpetuating that by creating this stream right now. But hopefully hopefully I think you guys know what I'm trying to say, but if not, that's what happens sometimes. Hopefully the media can put things into perspective. We can get into a proper timeline, look at this story respectively, share the information as it develops, and kind of make an example out of Jesse to show that this should not be the way that people conduct themselves, and it does a disservice to the individuals who actually have a problem, and therefore, yeah, hopefully the police do their job. They look into it, and the justice system properly works in this case. As for everything else, yeah, it's still developing, and I'll let you guys know what happens in the future. But for now, that's pretty much where I'm at. So yeah, guys, it's been fun hanging out. Thank you for the donations. Thank you guys for coming and hanging out and discussing things in the comment section. That's what this channel is all about. It's called The Open Debate for a reason. So I'll be doing more live streams soon. Make sure you come and check them out. And yeah, I'm Elder with The Open Debate. Be your own hero, kids.